Hello, everyone. This is Julia Poblete. I am a librarian with the World Bank Group in Washington, D.C. I would like to thank everyone that has joined us this morning and this evening in India. I'd like to especially give a big thanks to our colleagues at the IMF who have partnered with us to bring this presentation to you. And in particular, I'd like to thank Dr. Krishnamurthy Subramanian and Mr. Ranjan, who are coming to assist us from the IMF, as well as, of course, our special guest, Mr. Raman. We're so happy to have him and to speak concerning his new book, From a Car Shed to the Corner Room and Beyond. So we thank you very much. Again, I'd like to remind you that this presentation will be recorded. You are being recorded right now, so be aware. As well as we will accept all questions in the chat. So thank you very much for your time, and I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Ranjan. Thank you very much.
Morning, good morning, everyone. Thank you, Julia. Welcome to this World Bank book discussion with Mr. S. Raman, author of the book From a Car Shed to the Corner Room and Beyond. With Mr. Raman, to moderate this discussion is Dr. Krishnamurthy Subramanian, Executive Director, IMF. He, as the youngest Chief Economic Advisor to the Government of India from 2018 to 2021, Dr. Subramanian instituted economic policies that led to India emerging from the once-in-a-century COVID crisis with the strong macroeconomic fundamentals. Unlike the previous crisis when India joined the fragile five economies, Professor Subramanian displayed the courage of conviction to not only predict a V-shaped recovery for India, when every other commentator predicted doomsday for the Indian economy, but also convert the crisis into an opportunity by initiating seminal reforms. Acknowledging Dr. Subramanian's contributions, the Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji noted his academic brilliance, perspectives on economic and policy matters, and reformatory zeal. Dr. Subramanian has authored a zero-sum game. His new book, India at 100, is coming soon. When I think about the life of Dr. Subramanian or similar life of Mr. S. Raman, I remember a couplet from a Hindi poet, Dr. Sohan Lal Dwivedi. He says, I will translate you, but I quote, "Utha dhara se pahuch shikhar, आकाश बन गया, उठा धरा से पहुंच शिखर आकाश बन गया, धरा देखती रही पुत्र इतिहास बन गया." This is very true for Dr. Subramanian and Mr. Raman. And the meaning I would like to say, he rose from the earth and reached the sky, reached the pinnacle of success. And the earth kept on watching, and son of the soil became a part of history, created the history. Such is the human being. Dr. Subramanian is here to moderate the discussion. I hand over the floor to Dr. Subramanian. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. A very good evening to all the viewers in India, and a very good morning to all of those who are in the US. Let me first acknowledge that it's an incredible privilege for me to be able to moderate this discussion. I have had the privilege of knowing Sundar Raman Sir for more than a decade now. Let me start by that the name itself actually captures what Sundar Raman Sir's personality is. There are two words there in their Sanskrit. Sundar means beautiful, and he's somebody who's actually very beautiful, from inside, and having had the privilege of knowing him as a human being, I have absolutely no hesitation in saying, Sundar fits him really well as a human being who's so beautiful from inside. Of course, very beautiful from the outside as well. Very tall, handsome. I'm sure when you in your young age you would have been even more handsome, sir. And Raman actually, in the Indian ethos, if there are two characters that are respected the most, it's Ram and Krishna. And Ram is actually thought to be Maryada Purushottam, somebody whose integrity was absolutely unimpeachable. And having known Sundaraman sir so well, I can actually say that he has indeed symbolized the virtues of Sri Ramji in his life. And as we will, have the opportunity to discuss, you'll get an insight into why I say these, why I give this description. I had the opportunity to know about Raman Sir when we were part of what was called the PJ Nayak Committee of the Reserve Bank of India, and that was the first time we got to know. And then when he was a whole-time member, he had joined the committee, the PJ Nayak Committee, after having been the chairman and managing director of Canara Bank, and that is why that from a car shed to the corner office and beyond. The beyond part was when he became the whole-time member at SEBI and initiated some seminal reforms in corporate governance. So I've had the opportunity and the privilege to be able to see a lot of this from having a ringside view, and therefore I'm really privileged to have Raman Sir here with me. Let me start out by in yoga, which is and Raman Sir is a wonderful practitioner of that. If you go back to Patanjali's yoga, yoga is talked about as an Ashtanga. Ashta means Sanskrit means 8, and Anga means 8 different parts to it. So there are 8 different parts to Raman Sir, which we will try and explore. As a leader of unimpeachable integrity, I think that's something that stands out. As a banker who really, during even very tough times, held on, steadfastly to his honesty. As a policy maker, enforcing corporate governance and enhancing corporate governance in India. A music lover, a sports lover. That's those that completes 5 different parts of. As somebody who's actually lived life with an enormous zest, despite very trying times and challenges that he's. And I would urge all of you to read about this in the book. As a sadhak, sadhana in Sanskrit, dhan means wealth. Sa means is always good. So good wealth, somebody who's accumulated good wealth in his life through his spiritual pursuits. And of course, for me, the highlight of all this coming together is somebody who, even in Kali Yuga, an honest achiever. He sort of really breaks this stereotype that you have to cut corners to achieve, and I think that's why it's so wonderful to be able to speak to Raman Sir. I hope youngsters listening, would listen and read his book and thereby draw inspiration, because I myself read the book, and even though I knew a lot of what has been written in the book, I still was incredibly inspired. So thank you very much, sir, for you, that you are here to share your book. Let me start out by having an insight into you as a leader, because that is something which I found incredibly powerful. As somebody who empowered his team, as somebody who was there for his own leader, and a person who was not an I me myself, actually, who always cared far more for the institution than for him as an individual. So let me start by mentioning this wonderful instance that is there in the book, where Raman Sir had broken his hand, and his hand was in plaster, and then there was his leadership, there was an exercise where a team building exercise where, and many of us have done that, where you have to fall behind and let your colleagues and others actually catch you. While others, even though they didn't have an injury on their hand, etc., were reluctant to fall. In other words, they didn't place full trust on their team members. Despite having his hand fractured, he actually had the courage and the conviction to fall back, complete bindas, and his team members held him, and the facilitator of this session mentioned, this is what true leadership is about, where you place complete trust in your team. So with that wonderful anecdote, which in some sense captures the personality of Raman Sir, let me start by having Raman Sir share this particular anecdote and what is the learning that many of us can have from this. Thank you. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you very much, Professor. Very great privilege to be interviewed by you. Now, coming to that incident, that's one of the most unforgettable tenures of mine. I was in charge of Pimpri branch, which was a very big branch, more than 100 people, and then that branch became All India #1 branch during my time. One of the reasons why it became #1 was it was a tough branch, difficult branch to start with, but a good branch. And there were a number of very, very difficult people. One of them is, of course, mentioned there in the book, who is Kiran. And my philosophy as a leader was tackle the most difficult people first and take the most difficult issues first. And once you succeed there, then everything else becomes such a cakewalk. Then there is tremendous amount of momentum in the life of the branch and in the life of an organization. So embracing tough choices came naturally to me, and I had a lot of faith in my people. Trust was 100% for me. And when that was a team building exercise, as you mentioned, and it was not an easy thing with my hand in the sling. I had broken both the bones near the elbow, and it was a pretty nasty thing. But I had no doubt whatsoever that my team is there to protect me from any bad fall, and that's what it is. And the moderator was watching everyone fall. Concluded at the end, the man with the hand on the sling was the man who had the best confidence in his teammates, and that is one of the proudest moments, I would say, so far as I am concerned. And you also were mentioning about leadership is not only being #1. Sometimes being #2 in an organization and being of such supports, a great support to the #1, that is equally a part of leadership. I will narrate an incident. When I was in Union Bank, there was a problem and some KYC issues, and there was a big AML case which was happening. And my chairman, Mr. Nayak, hopefully he is there somewhere now, or even if he is not, of course, I can mention. So that gentleman, my chairman, was called by the Enforcement Directorate and then for an interview, etc. And he asked me, Raman, will you? And then he asked me to come along with him. I said, yes, this is a very critical time for the bank, and we have to, it's a matter of reputation of the bank. We have to do all that we can to protect the reputation. So I went along, and then as soon as our meeting was over with the officials, when we came out of the building, there were a host of photographers, and all of them trying to catch Mr. Nayak's picture. To me, I was just watching, and not many were interested in me. I was on the other side of the stairs, and he was. When I watched all the photographers trying to take a picture of Mr. Nayak, I felt he cannot be alone at this time. I have to be by his side. So I went, stood by his side, and ensured that I was there in the picture frame at that point of time. So this is something which thrills me even today. That was a great act. And it's not a very pleasant thing to be photographed coming out of the ED's office. And if one would have a choice, one would rather avoid being in the picture. But I sought to be in the picture. I went along and stood by him as one of my good acts in my life, which gives me great happiness. And then again, leader, this one funny incident about this Pimpri branch. There was one Kiran by name staff, the most talented person in the branch, but the most perverted and also the most difficult. He was a great headache for all my predecessors, and he was a terror. If he would come near the manager's cabin, the others would be worried, sweating. And here was the same fellow. The minute I went, I stood, I saw what was happening, and he was the kingpin. So I had to tackle him first. So The next day after my coming, I went to his seat and said, "What are you doing, Kiran? What is your job?" He said, "This is my lockers, is my job." And I asked him, "How many lockers are vacant?" He said, "There's some 500. I said, "How, with you being there, how can there be 500? And what is it that you are doing to set it right?" Then he said, "Sir, there are many units. In each of the units, there are some vacant, many not. So I'm not able to do anything. The lockers are all small, for which there is no demand." Then I told him, why don't you vacate some units so that we can send it to somebody else? Then he said, "It's very difficult." I said, "It might be difficult, but I'm sure you will be able to do it." And then it occurred to him that, well, he for the first time, somebody was asking him about his job. And he said, "Okay, can I do it in 2 months, sir?" I said, "Yeah, I will give you 3 months, but do it." And then, of course, he did a fantastic job, and within 2 months, we could dispose of some 600, 700 lockers to other branches. And where he was known only as a troublemaker, in fact, he became a troubleshooter. And I celebrated his success. Leadership means giving credit to others. It's not only giving credit to others, proclaiming the great deed of that person in front of everyone. It's not for nothing it is said, praise in public, fire in private. It's a very, very deep principle. Then I called for a meeting and then I told, here is the hero of this last month. This is what he has done. I would not have been able to do what Kiran has done. In fact, those days there was a very lovely movie by name Dar. There is a very famous song which says, Tu hi meri Kiran. Tu hi meri Kiran. Kiran is a name which is masculine as well as feminine in some parts of India. That is a peculiar thing about this name. And in fact, I told the staff, I could not say Mary Kiran because he was, of course, a person, a male. So, very funny also. Actually, life is there to be, in the toughest of situations, there is a lot to enjoy in life and a lot of humorous incidents. In fact, in my book, I've also written about my little granddaughter whose picture you are able to see here. She, her mother was working from home, and with a small little child, active child, working from home is not easy for my daughter-in-law, and with nobody else to take care of the child. So she must have told Netra, "Be a good girl, you will not make noise, etc., etc." But then, in that tough situation, one day, of course, she said, "No, no, no, I want to talk to your manager." And the manager overheard Netra saying so. So she told Shweta, my daughter-in-law, "No, no, I want to speak to the kid. The kid wants to talk to me. I don't want to disappoint her. Let her speak to me." And then she speaks to my daughter-in-law's manager and says, Manager, my mom is working very, very hard. Please give her some more money." And they ran away. And of course, she went on about her business later. And then the manager not only gave her a rise, also promoted her. I mean, in a very tough situation, there are moments of lightheartedness, joy, pleasure. It is for us to catch those happy moments in the toughest of situations. I think, I will leave it to you now for the next. Have you lost the sound? I'm not able to hear the sound.
Sorry. Yeah. No, thank you very much, sir. Actually, leadership is indeed about pursuing the basic human values, the human, value of placing trust on your team, being there at difficult times. And by the way, for the benefit of those who are not from banking, AML is basically anti-money laundering. And as we all know, when senior officials are called to the enforcement directorate, ED's enforcement directorate, for charges relating to anti-money laundering, which is what Raman Sir actually was there to support his leader, the CMD at that point in time. You can understand that people do not want to get photographed, but being there as the number 2 to support the number 1, even though it is difficult, I think is basically illustrates human values. Giving credit to subordinates, to the team members, I think is also something that one would see. For instance, people like Mahendra Singh Dhoni, Saurav Ganguly and others who are genuine leaders, actually they give credit, and oftentimes when things don't go their way, then they actually are there to take that criticism. And I think that is a very important aspect of leadership that we get to learn about from. I do want to also another aspect of very important aspect of leadership is placing the institution, whatever institution, that institution maybe sometimes a family, maybe the particular city, or maybe the nation, maybe the institution that we are working for, our employer, placing that above oneself. And that's something that came through very well. Raman Sir, I want you to share when you became the chairman and managing director of Canara Bank. So I have a research paper where we found, for instance, that in general, when in the public sector banks, when a person took over as a chairman, what he or she would typically do was to clean up the books. In other words, take a big loss, so that the base from which they can operate is low, so that when they exit, they can show, oh, I have actually showed very good performance. But that was the norm. But what Raman Sir did was exactly against the norm. He said, when in the first quarter, when results were announced, he said the bank is in very good shape. Rather than trying to actually apportion credit to himself, he placed put the institution first and above himself. And this is something which I actually find it very, very appealing, very inspiring, that those that are genuine leaders are not I, me, myself, and they actually place the institution above and beyond there. So please, I would love to hear about this, because I think this is such an important aspect of leadership, because many times most people are told, oh, be selfish, be self-centered, that is when you'll have success, etc., which is, in my opinion, complete bullshit. And to basically have someone like Raman Sir sharing his experience about not being that way is something that our viewers would love to hear.
One in the audience here is Mr. P.V. Maya, who was a member of the board of Canara Bank at that point in time, during my time. He was an outstanding director, and I am very happy he is right now amongst the group. Now, let me tell you, this institution is far more important than any individual. That has been my credo all my life. No individual is bigger than the institution. Whatever he is, whether he is Prime Minister, whether he is any minister, whether he is Chief Minister, whether head of the family. Even as head of the family comes first, not me. So whenever a fellow thinks I am the master of the house and the rest are subordinate, it's gone. So there's a very important article of faith with me. In any case, of course, to give credit to my predecessor, who was Mr. A.C. Mahajan, who was the senior to me in Bank of India itself, the bank was in a good shape. There was nothing for me to clean and all that. Anything can be improved upon, but that's the duty of a successor. Right. Successor's job is not to blame the predecessor, criticize him, and then paint him in bad light. And with the result that the institution gets suffered. Now, in this particular case, when I saw there was nothing to clean, and one can always complain, engineer a complaint, but that's not my approach at all. And I saw the bank was pretty good shape. And I joined the bank on 1st of September. And when we were about to declare the results for the September quarter, it was my first quarterly results declaration. The entire financial press and everybody was expecting that Canara Bank will show a big loss, that the new person has found a lot of muck in the bank, and he has cleaned it up and he will start. That was the trend at that point in time. Almost everyone, barring a few exceptions. This was a very normal thing which was happening. And it is a very sickening thing for every predecessor to be painted black by the successor, and for every person to wish the successor bad. This is something very nasty. No country can improve, no institution can improve with this type of logic. Anyway, so when we declared the results, which was an increase in profit during that quarter rather than a decrease and a loss, in fact, which many people were expecting I would do, then there was such a huge amount of surprise. And when I was, we had a meeting of the analysts, etc. So the main question was, how is it that you have not cleaned your books? And I said there is nothing for me to clean. The bank is in a good shape, etc. You know what happened to the share price? You know, when I took over, it was 516. I remember the figures very distinctly. And it started jumping, 630, 700, 750. Then it reached 850. 836 was the highest, if I remember right, somewhere in November. That is in a period of just 2.5 months. And I used to wonder myself, what is it that there is in the bank which I don't know what the market knows? So that amount of great impact it had. And when the bank's share price increases, there is no better tonic than that for anyone and everyone, any
True.
organization, for instance. And
True.
in fact, I'm so proud that that is what happened. And in fact, we immediately went for a QIP issue. What is the direct result of my trying to be nice to the bank, nice to myself,
Mhm.
nice to everyone, the entire family of Canara Bank. In fact, my father was a Canara Bank employee. There is nothing which I could ever imagine doing which would bring any discredit to my father's bank. It was my father's bank and my bank right from the age of 10. So that is the amount of loyalty, and I was so happy. It gave an opportunity for me to raise capital. We raised 2,000 crores. In fact, we would have raised 4,000 crores, but for one scandal which happened, money matter scandal, and the share price of Canara Bank was lower than the SEBI formula, and it took about 2 more months for it to catch up. So the minute it first time the share price was above the SEBI formula, we hit the market and then we raised more than almost 2,000 crores. So for a leader, is very, very important. I used to say when I was branch zonal manager, I used to address my managers. Don't ever start telling me that your predecessor was an idiot, and I don't want anyone to say that his successor is doing a nasty job. This is something which completely I don't accept. And second, in the same meeting, I remember I would tell people, many people would not do well, some would do very well. And then those who do well, of course, you praise them. Those who do not do well, at that point in time, of course, then it was my policy never to make names, mention names. I said, those who have done well know that they have done well, and I am declaring the name. Those who have not done well, they all know themselves. But I am not willing to write off a single one of you. There is still 6 months to go. There is still 3 months to go. There is a lot we can do together, etc., etc. In fact, you were talking about trust earlier. In Pimpri branch, where I was the manager and became India's best branch, I made an open declaration to the staff. Every one of you has got right to say yes to a customer. Not one of you has a right to say no.
Mm.
No will be said by me. Right? Other than routine stuff. Other than routine stuff, of course, the check has to be returned. He cannot just look to me for that.
Right.
But by and large, you have to empower your staff and you have to act. It's not merely a declaration or a statement. You are exposed in no time if you do not actually follow what you are saying.
Correct.
So practice what you say. That's very, very important part of leadership, and that's how actually loyalty develops. In fact, this is the IPL cricket season now going to start in India. I remember in 2008, I've written in the book, I was in the Union Bank as ED. The IPL had just started, the first season, 2008, I think. So I used to get passes for the matches. I said, I used to tell people, don't ever send me just 2 passes for me and my wife. If you want to send passes, send 10 passes. I have a lot of people around me here who are all wonderful, and I would like all of them to experience the thrill of the IPL. So, and for all classes, you can't obviously give box tickets to everybody,
Correct.
and many people will not be comfortable in that. So,
Correct.
stand, lower stand, middle stand, higher stand, whatever.
Right.
But I used to ensure. And 10 years later, my secretary in the Union Bank, who was still in the Union Bank, she was telling me, Mr. Raman, they all remember you as a person who gave them the tickets and who gave them the IPL experience. So nothing satisfies me more than being told that I am remembered for 10 years hence for an act which I thought was human and which one ought to do,
Correct.
but which was considered a very generous act on her part.
In fact, that is a nice segue for us, sir, to talk about you as a sports lover. You talked about IPL. I read in the book that you were the one who actually helped Vishwanathan Anand when he was traveling. Of course, not when he was a big name world champion, but earlier, his manager had come to to encash travelers checks, his travelers checks. He had to travel outside the country, and at that time, the rules were a little bit more difficult. And you took onus on yourself, with the potential that there may be some losses. You may have had to bear those in order to help him. Again, that just reveals such a consistent part of your, the bigger thing always, whether it was actually India sports people, whether it was the Canara Bank as an institution, whether it was your team, it always was bigger than you. And would love for you to share some of your experiences actually as a sports lover, and how you've actually encouraged sports in the country through the roles that you've played.
Yeah, Anand, let me tell you, the great thing about helping somebody or doing something beyond a call of duty or beyond what is easily or usually expected is the tremendous amount of returns it gives you. Anand, it was a Saturday that day, and Anand got a permanent only then. And he was to leave on a Sunday to Baguio City, Philippines, and for the World Junior Championship. And he comes, his secretary, one Nambudiri. Sorry?
So how old must Vishwanathan Anand have been at that time?
Yeah, it was in the World Junior Championship. So it is 1987. Now almost 1987 was the year. 87, right. 88, maybe. Yeah. So he was going to Baguio City, and his secretary, one Mr. Nambudiri, he came to the bank, and then he asked for the traveler's checks. It was not my portfolio. It was my neighbor's portfolio, who was a friend. And the neighbor was, my friend was not in a mood to oblige him. He said, it's Saturday. Saturday there are no foreign exchange transactions, and I cannot give you. And I was hearing the conversation, and I was a great sports lover. I knew Vishwanathan Anand's name, and I knew that he was actually going to become a world championship junior champion. So I told him, you may not be knowing Anand. Let me tell you who is he. And then please, he has got the permit only today. But Saturdays were working day for RBI those days. So it is a Saturday, you got the permit today. How can you get traveler's checks on a Friday when he has to leave on Sunday? This is ridiculous. Anyway, let us give him the traveler's checks. He said, the rules don't permit. I said, okay, I am prepared to sign the voucher. And then what is the worst? Why Saturday is not a day for foreign exchange? Something calamitous thing may happen on a Sunday, and then the bank may end up with a big loss on a Monday. I mean, this is the logic part of it. So I said, he is asking for some 2,000 something, a small amount. And what worse can happen? Nothing worse than some 10,000, 20,000 rupees loss. I am prepared to bear it in case such a thing happens. It will not happen. I am prepared to sign, and here it is. And then I asked him, prevailed upon him, and actually forced him in a way to issue the traveler's checks. He was a good friend for me otherwise. But you know what the returns it has given me thus far? This is an act of 1987. I did something which was maybe not ordinarily expected to be done, but till today, I feel whenever Anand is winning some championship, whenever he is recognized internationally, I feel I am being done. I am being recognized. I have won the something, I am the winner myself. So that is the beauty of success. Success has many fathers, they say. Why do they say success has many fathers? Everyone says, I did that, I did that, I did that. Everyone did something small. But then altogether, a success leads to 100 heroes, 100 happy people, 100, So till today, and my own friend who was so reluctant to give the traveler's checks, he also started celebrating his success afterward. And Anand, of course, became world senior champion. Subsequently, he became such a big figure and so wonderful. And nothing can give more happiness than giving in life. In fact, one of the philosophies, I think my friend Venkatesh is somewhere here. He is one of the finest givers I have seen in my life. Venkatesh, hello. No, and his father, I will tell you a great story, human story. His father was an English teacher. He never knew how to ask anybody anything. He only knew how to give everybody, anybody who came to him. And when I was selected for foreign posting for the first time in 1983, I was going to Jersey and I had to go via London. And Venkatesh was a great friend of mine and a family friend. I had huge respect for his father. Every Sunday I would go there. And then he asked me, Raman, can you do it? Will you do a thing for me? I was a bit shocked because I had never seen him ask anyone anything. And you know I was very keen to know what he would ask. I said, yes, sir, what can I do for you? Then he said, Raman, when you will go via London, right, to Jersey? I said, yes. So when you go to London, please go to Westminster Abbey, pay my respects to Emily Bronte, the poetess. You know, what a request. And then actually I went, first thing I did on reaching London was to go to Westminster Abbey. Her grave is not there. There's a plaque in memory of Emily Bronte, which I said, okay, namaskar from Mr. Ramurthy Garu. And, and the extension of the story. Ramurthy sir was knowing everything about England. He was a great English teacher. And he knew a lot of things in England. So whenever I would see anything in England, I would also see for Mr. Ramurthy. And also for another uncle of mine, Mr. Kesavan. So whatever I would see, any monument I would go to, any historical place, these two people will always be in my mind. They were additional, I was looking at those things additionally for two people. Oh, it's amazing. And actually, Mr. Ramurthy passed away. And a few, 1 or 2 months later, I happened to go to Cambridge for a training program. And in the training program, it was for 2 weeks. And just as it was about to conclude, there is a usual farewell dinner for the participant. And it was a Thursday. We were going to wind up on a Friday. Cambridge, I roamed in every street I have walked in Cambridge. And wherever I walked, of course, Mr. Ramurthy and Mr. Kesavan were always there in my mind. And in that thing, I was wanting to raise a toast in memory of Mr. Ramurthy. I never knew, I was not sure whether a toast could be raised for a dead person, the memory of a dead person. We always say cheers to, cheers, success to this team, success to you, etc. So generally it's associated more with living people. I was not sure whether it is raised in memory of a dead person. So I asked the gentleman, is it possible to raise a toast in in memory of a dead person? He said yes. So we raised a toast in the memory of Mr. Ramurthy. And then I told them the story. You might be wondering who is this Mr. Ramurthy about whom I'm so much talking about. So he is the English teacher from Hyderabad, and I narrated him the story of Emily Bronte. There was not a single year which was not wet. One of the happiest days in my life. And it's there in the book.
Yes, I remember. Wonderful. Yeah. And I must mention, sir, actually, because Vishwanathan Anand himself has been so instrumental in the chess revolution in India. I will tell you, even after you actually, whenever that moment happens, even after you're leaving this planet, the contribution you have made to chess in India, albeit that small, as they say in the yagya, you put your ahuti, and that ahuti is what is helping India become such a big, huge chess power. So, really thankful to you for, as a sports lover myself. Another aspect I want to actually, and this is again something that I relate so beautifully to you as a lover of music. And this, when I read the book, I had to actually ask you to relate this anecdote, because I have been a huge fan of MS Subbulakshmi. And in the book, you relate this incident about, I think in 1980-81, when MS Sama had come to sing in Shanmukhananda Hall, which is actually a very, very famous hall in Bombay. And I think about 5-10 minutes into the concert, the power went away. And then she sang without a mic and with traditional lamps, actually, in Tamil, it's called Kuttivelakku. So, I think I don't think there are too many people who will be able who would have had this kind of experience of listening to MS Amma like a private concert. So you have to tell, share about that. And maybe if you remember one of the best songs that she might have sang in that concert.
One of my most unforgettable moments, because these moments happen very rarely.
Yes.
And Bombay is not a place where which is associated with power failure and all that. Power supply was so steady that nobody had the generator. It was not considered necessary. Nobody had generator. And when actually the lights suddenly failed because of some huge problem somewhere, there is a big issue, and there is no preparation at all. So, but she continued singing. She said, "You have put some additional lamps here," and that's it. I was in the last row, and in fact, one of my cousins is there in the group right now. He was with me during that particular episode, and we had gone as family. And this lady sang, my goodness, such a divine person, like of which can never be seen. And can you imagine a person singing from such a big hall,
Yes.
and without a mic, pin drop silence? I think the silence of the crowd amplified her sound, maybe. You know,
Yes.
It's wonderful. So everyone was so spellbound. We use the word spellbound so loosely many times, but here was the case, it was spellbound. Everyone was just dead silent, and we all enjoyed the concert. Let
Do you
me tell you
remember?
something about Subbalakshmi Amma. She
Huh.
came to Hyderabad when I spent my entire much of my life in Hyderabad, childhood and preparatory years. And there was a new mutt being opened, Ramakrishna Mutt, and Swami Ranganathanji, who became the chief of the Ramakrishna Mutt worldwide, he was the chief in Ramakrishna Mutt, Hyderabad. At the consecration, there was a consecration function for the temple and the mutt itself. And Subbalakshmi came, she was invited, she sang, and wonderfully. Last item of the agenda of the day was consecration of the temple by Swami Ranganatha. And you know what? This is one of the finest speeches I have heard, the shortest ones also. He said, we have just heard MS Amma saying, where MS sings, that place becomes sacred. This place already stands consecrated by MS Subbalakshmi singing, and there is no separate consecration required by me once again. So, short speech, wonderful speech. EMS, I can say anything, any amount. But so far as music is concerned, I was fond of Hindi film music. I grew up in Hyderabad, so we were very familiar with Hindi film music. And I had a good year for music. I was in UK for 4 years. I became extremely fond of English pop. Phil Collins was a great friend, was a great favorite of mine. Elton John too, and many others. Then when I was in the US, I heard a concert by Bocelli. Bocelli was again a blind man. Oh, wonderful singing. Opera singing by Placido Domingo and many others. All types of music. I think music is very, very divine. Any type of music is extremely divine. It gives you so much of peace. So music is something which I really love. I don't have much of what is the theoretical knowledge about music, but I have a good ear for music. I can only say, okay, this is good and not bad, and not good. This one. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, music.
On MS Sama, I must share, sir. Actually, my father, who passed away in 2015, whenever he would hear MS Sama, he would say that in her previous life, she must have done Abhishekam with just honey, to the divine, and that is why I think there are no words to describe for me listening to MSM and live, that too, actually, without a mic. I think it's a phenomenal experience. That leads me to actually ask you, is there a song that you remember from that concert? If not, is there a favorite song of yours from Bollywood? And maybe if you can hum just a couple of lines, that'll be great. Or just mention the song.
That's a challenge, but about humming, I like a number of songs. Anyway,
Is there a favorite of yours? Is there a favorite?
MS Subbalakshmi, of course, I will say, there is one song which made me name my son Hari. That, Haryane, oh, Manasa,
Correct.
Bhavamlo, something. Bhavamlo,
Bhagyamunandunu,
Bhavamlo.
Bhavamulona, Bhagyamunandunu. It's a beautiful Annamacharya Kirtana, if I remember right.
And actually, this tape actually came out in 1982. My son, or 81, and my son was born in 83, and in Jersey, in UK. I wanted to give him a small name, and I named him Hari because of this song.
Beautiful.
So,
Beautiful.
I can sing a bit reasonably, but I was not. It was a bit sudden for me now. Yeah.
That's right. That's
Somebody
fine.
helped me in singing that song. I'm thankful. My brother-in-law Srinath is here. Of course, I see him. He sings well. Yeah, I think he was the one who hummed that song. Thank you, Srinath. Yeah.
So that leads me, sir. Actually, I think it's a very nice, because I do want to open up for some questions. So music is actually, and those who pursue music with the kind of passion and the kind of devotion that MSMA pursued, they're actually said to be, pursuing the Nada Brahman, and that therefore Nadam in Sanskrit means a sound, and Brahman is basically the ultimate, and so the pursuit of the infinite through music, and that also as a path of spiritual progress. So therefore, I would love to hear from you, sir. Actually, you've been a sadhak, all your life. You've been a practitioner of yoga and pranayama, and of late, sir has written the entire Bhagavad Gita and the Srimad Bhagavatam. In Devanagari script by hand. I think it requires enormous amounts of dedication and devotion to be able to do that. So I would love to hear from you about your own spiritual path, spiritual pursuits, and especially for the purpose of youngsters, share some of in the last chapter in your book, you talk about the twin tsunami. I think all of us would benefit from knowing how you continue to actually be like a sthita pragya. Actually in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna uses this word sthita pragya. Pragya means wisdom. Sthita pragya, somebody who resides in wisdom. So despite such turmoil, and as a father, I myself can relate with some of that. I think if you can just share how you maintain that equanimity and the zest for life, and how the spiritual path helps you in that, I think would be enormous learning for not just the youngsters, but for each one of us, in our own lives.
Yes. Now my life, everyone's life has ups and downs. The one message for anybody or youngster especially, life is not meant to be smooth. Life is bound to be like this. And the way you handle the ups and downs, that defines you over a period of time. But let me tell you about the crisis itself. It's an important part of the book. It's twin tsunamis. I was charged by the CBI for no reason. My liberty was taken away. There was a lookout notice, and I could not go to US. When my son required a surgery, and because I could not go, and he did not have a support system in the US because he had a little daughter, 2 years old, and so he decided, okay, we will have the surgery in India. He came here, and unfortunately, there a lot of complications developed, and he passed away at the age of 34, leaving a child, this little girl, 2.5 years old, and my daughter-in-law was less than 30 at that point in time. So the world was totally shattered for me. They won the CBI action for no reason, and not one person believed anything, and my reputation remained intact despite all that. That's a different story. But then how to tackle? Then I was also trying to wonder why things have happened to me. Not why me, but what is the rationale? Why it could happen? I have 3 lovely sisters and a lovely brother, all of whom are very proficient in the scriptures. Somebody said, why don't you write? My elder sister said, please do read the Bhagavad Gita. I started reading. I'll tell you the philosophy of mine while reading itself. Many people also suggested you read this man's commentary, this person's commentary, Lokmanya Tilak's commentary, Mahatma Gandhi's commentary. So many commentaries have come because Bhagavad Gita is such a great work. It's God's own work. So there are a number of people who have written great things about. But I said at the age of 65, 66, it is time for me to comment rather than just absorbing others' comments. Then when will I actually myself go into the book? So I said, no commentary of anyone. I will go. I had a small pocket edition of Bhagavad Gita. You are able to see this?
Yes,
Such a
yes.
small little work published by Krishnamurthy, which I used to carry for a long time. I was a very casual student, but I became a serious one. And the approach of mine in going about the study myself, not depending on anyone's commentary, was this. I found a shloka to me which is something extremely profound in the Bhagavad Gita. Many people, every single shloka in the Bhagavad Gita is God's creation, though there is nothing to be said that this is better or this is not that good. Everything is absolutely wonderful. But still, when it comes to touching your heart, there are some shlokas which touch your heart. And this is the shloka which touched my heart. It is in chapter 10, Bhagavan tells Arjuna his manifestations, where all he can be found. He can be found in the best of the best things. That's a general statement. And of course, he says on material things, non-material things, and the non-material things is amongst the seasons I am Kusum Rutu. Again, amongst the trees I am this, amongst animals I am this, etc., etc. He describes the manifestations. And in the same breath, he says in shloka number 37, Pandavanam Dhananjaya. To me, actually, that summed up the entire Bhagavad Gita because look at what was Arjuna at that point of time in the battlefield. At the battlefield, there was a beaten man. He had he was not willing to fight. And he was down the arms. And he was actually entirely, he forgot his dharma to fight the back. So at that point in time, he was such a weakling. And in that point of time, Bhagavan says to Arjuna, I am in you. Amongst the Pandavas, I am in you. So to me, when I was actually facing the CBI thing, my world had crumbled. It appeared to me that Krishna was telling me personally, my dear friend, I am there with you. I felt like Arjuna. And in fact, all of us are Arjunas in the entire world. With Bhagavan, we are all Arjunas. Actually, I felt the amount of comfort I got from that shloka. And initial stages, tears used to just torrentially fall. And whenever I would tell, I would break down. What is this? God's kindness. How kind He is. He tells a beaten man that I am in you. And I was beaten at that point in time. I felt I was actually being held by God Himself. So this was a great advantage. And whenever some provision happens in the Bhagavad Gita, I always look to what they say about this shloka 10.37. And most times they would say, okay, I am amongst trees, I am in Ashwatha, and amongst animals, I am this, etc. Amongst Pandavas, I am Arjuna. That's it, dismissed. So they don't, but to me, the entire Bhagavad Gita is that Pandavanam Dhananjaya. So this is all credit to my sisters. And then I wrote the entire Valmiki Ramayana by hand. My son had passed away, everything had crumbled. Then, in all such situations, one thing is very important. I told myself at that point in time, when my son had passed away, the first immediate I was preoccupied with was to take a decision, what to do with the body. I said, my little granddaughter, 2 years old, is here. I would not like her to see all this. So I asked my Panditji, can I take my son directly to the crematorium? Wouldn't be violating, but I'm a spiritual person, I'm not a very ritualistic person. I said, I don't want to do something wrong, but at the same time, this is my concern. I want my little child to be protected. He said, there is nothing wrong, we can do all the ceremonies there. And so the immediate point which occurred to me was I could have started bemoaning, why me? I remembered Arthur Ashe. I've written in detail about this experience in the book. Yes. Arthur Ashe, that's a great statement, why me? Then I asked myself, is my son, am I the only father who has lost his son? in the prime? No. There's so many fellows who have lost. Is my daughter-in-law the only person who has lost her husband at the prime of her life, 30 years? She was less than 30. Poor thing. But she was an amazing person, my daughter-in-law. Amazing. I salute to her. And the only thing which used to make me emotional was my little granddaughter. This poor thing has lost her father at the age of 2. So, what unfair. So then, to that also I asked the same question. Is she the only child who has lost her parents? No. There are so many young children who have lost their parents, but they have fought their way and come through in life. So, why should I? And also, on further thought, I thought, you see, God sends us with an agenda. God has sent my little granddaughter to this world. My dear darling, you are such a wonderful creature. You go there, get born, you will lose your father, but still you will turn out great.
Correct.
So, who am I to say that I don't have faith in my granddaughter?
Correct.
I have 100% faith in my granddaughter. I said there is nothing to grieve, even from the perspective of my grandchild. And one final thing I will tell you, which I have written in the book, is that actually these tragedies or calamities which we call, there is no tragedy in life and there is no calamity in life which cannot be handled, provided we have the right focus. There is no calamity at all in this world. And I strongly believe a tragedy is not a tragedy, provided the tragedy is taken as a test, administered by God Himself. So I still tell myself, my dear, this is a test being administered by God on me, and this test I will not fail. I used to tell myself repeatedly, this test I cannot afford to fail, and this test I will not fail. And God has been extremely kind. And I tell you, I feel the divine presence by my side. After all of us feel nothing special about me. But anyway, I'm talking about myself. I feel God's presence, divine presence by my side, almost by my side, always. So, which I have experienced after my son has gone, much before that, all through my life. This has been a very, connecting thread in my life. So, tragedy is no tragedy. That's my philosophy. And you have to look to what is present. When my son died, I told myself, he is past. Hari is now in the past. My present is Shweta, my daughter-in-law. My future is Netra, my daughter, my granddaughter. So I have to be concerned and bothered about the present and the future, not about the past. So, it may sound tough, and but that's what helped me actually maintain my balance. And I tell you, great credit to my wife. We never lamented, we never went on crying about our loss, and we were rock steady. And other than an occasional tear, of course, which is natural when you remember him. Some occasions, happy occasions again. So, other than that, nothing. So, life is to be led. Acceptance. One important point I will say and close on this particular question is the importance of accepting in life what happens in life. If the minute we accept, okay, this is what is ordained and this is what is God's scheme of things ought to happen, it has happened and I accept it. If you do not accept, then it's a problem. And one final thing I remember, some great, when I was in the hospital for 1 month, along with the son, a friend of mine, Ravi Kumar, I don't know whether he is there, his name is there in the book many times. He brought me a book to read while in the hospital. The first sentence in that book, I have a word about it in the book itself. You can, when you read the book, you will see. It says, life is not meant to be fair. That was the first sentence in the book. That struck me as something maybe cruel, but actually it helped me it gave me a lot of strength. Because actually my own friend Ravi was saying it's very unfair what is happening to Hari at such a young age, and and in fact he is such a great fellow, Ravi. He said, I have been praying, Raman, that my life should be transferred to him. I have written about in this book. It can't be higher active generosity by a person. He says, I want my life. Then I told him, this is also my prayer. But this my prayer is for my son. That's fine. That is understandable. But for you to say that is something, monumental generosity. So you see the best things in life. You face difficulties. I never say anything is worse or worst or anything like that. It's all a test. And once you take anything which happens to you as a test, any difficulty, in fact, I don't use the word adjective at all. Difficult, calamity. Oh, no, 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 no. We are 100% confident. We are 100% optimistic about our daughter-in-law, about our grandchild. God is there, and they have come with an agenda, and they will fight it out.
Correct. Correct.
And I should have confidence in them. I have 100% confidence.
Sir, as a father and as a son myself, I can so relate. And because you talked about the Bhagavad Gita, this particular experience and overall, I don't think there can be a better way to describe what you just shared than from the Bhagavad Gita itself, chapter 3, shloka 21. Bhagwan says, Yadyat acharati sreshtataha tat evetaro janaha sayat pramanam kurute lokas tad anuvartate. And that's captured. Let me translate. Yadyat acharati sreshtataha. Sresht, someone like Sundar Raman Sir, Sresht, actually in his behavior, in the way he's handled things in life. So acharan is behavior. The way people like him behave. Yadyat acharati sreshtataha tat evetaro janaha. So people like us actually feel inspired and follow his footsteps. Sayat pramanam kurute, not just words, actually action. Praman is proof. Sayat pramanam kurute lokas tad anuvartate. Chapter 3, shloka 21, I think beautifully captures what Raman Sir shared so beautifully. We've run out of time, unfortunately, but maybe, Julie, if we have, I can spare maybe a few more minutes for sure. If there are questions, I would love to. But let me first get a green signal from Julie if we can take a couple of questions.
Well, sir, yes, we have the meeting space until about 11:30, so
Okay.
we have a few minutes yet. There is one comment in the chat if you'd like to hear that, and then you can go on with your questions. From NC Raghaba, and please forgive me if I mispronounce your name. It says that, yeah, the comment says, it was a privilege to have known Raman since 1974 as batchmates in Bank of India. A great friend, Raghaba, Singapore.
I think that captures so beautifully the sentiment that many of us feel. For me, I've looked at Raman Sir as a father-like figure, and somebody whom I've drawn enormous inspiration from. Maybe this might, I actually see a lot of similarities, the way he conducts himself. I have actually, and therefore with me, and therefore I found a lot of inspiration in the way we didn't have an opportunity to talk about the tough part, the way he would. I just want to relate one anecdote, and this was the last meeting of the PJ Nayak committee, and this remains in my. So Raman Sir wanted to share some thoughts, and I think others were all chiming in, and then Raman Sir raises his voice a little bit and says that now I want to speak and I do not want to be interrupted. And then he spoke for the next few minutes. Nobody interrupted him, and he shared his perspectives. And I think that when the need arose, actually, to be able to bring on the tough side as well, I think that's an important aspect of being a leader. So, I will be happy to take, and I think Shri M.S. Rao has beautifully mentioned Mr. Raman's life is an example to many. Indeed, sir. I don't think I can do better than actually capture what two stalwarts in India have talked about, have mentioned about the book. Narayan Sir and former Governor Subbarao Sir, actually. So both Dr. Subbarao says in the foreword, this is a book that is bound to inspire millions, and I think that as those of us who participated here, we want to say Tathastun, so be it, Amen. Let that be indeed the case. And Narayan Murthy Sir says, an inspiring life story, rivetingly told. I think that captures, having read the book myself, I could not agree more with either of the two descriptions. Before we move on, and if there are to take questions, on our behalf, all of us are actually older than your daughter-in-law and your granddaughter, we want to wish our best wishes for both of them, that they may indeed they may indeed live the faith that you've enforced, that you've imposed on them, that you've actually shared. I think no doubt that they are your daughter-in-law and your granddaughter. So in Tamil there is this saying, "Puliki parandadu pune ahadu." So in other words, the child of a tiger will not be a cat, and so I'm sure your granddaughter Netra will do phenomenally well. Our Asirvadams, our blessings to her and to your daughter-in-law as well. Mr. Srinivasan, actually, I think before that, G. Narayanan, so mostly comments coming in. I'm just going to read them. I've not seen a question yet here. So G. Narayanan says, a friend, philosopher, now a guide. I'm privileged to have known Raman as a colleague and neighbor. Mr. Srinivasan says, a down-to-earth person. I couldn't agree more with you, Srinivasan sir. And of course, I've seen that aspect as a guide. Narayanan sir, I agree with you. So Rakesh Sethi says, this is a comment about me actually, which I'm going to skip. Let me move on to, I think, best wishes from Ravindranath. Saying basically best wishes, Raman sir, Sita and Ravindranath are conveying their good wishes. It's been incredibly enriching for me. I was in when you were talking about MS Amma sir, actually I had a couple of tears roll down my own. That's how riveting you actually shared. It's been a real Neela worked with us. Neela Khanolkar, who's at the fund here, IMF. She worked with us on the Uday Kota Corporate Governance Committee, and Neela says Raman sir has been an inspiration for many of us during his time in SEBI and after, both personally and professionally. It's been a privilege knowing you, sir. So and Mahesh Singh says a great leader, bundle of energy, positivity, and acumen. I think that bundle of energy and positivity is something that you yourself saw, being able to live life with the kind of zest. At his age, he's still, learning to play table tennis and, underhand cricket. And I think that captures the zest in life. So really beautiful hearing so many tributes coming in from so many wonderful people. I think that just is testimony to how you influence so many people in a positive way. And Rakesh Sethi, in fact, adds saying, have enjoyed reading the book, so nicely titled. So I think that's the last question that I would pose to you, sir. That the title of the book is From a Car Shed to the Corner Room and Beyond. And I think there can't be a better way than for you to share in a few minutes why you titled the book From a Car Shed to the Corner Room and Beyond. And if any, you've shared a lot of lessons, but one last lesson for us and for youngsters. Over to you, sir.
Yeah, car shed is the earlier word for garage. Somebody said, why don't you use the word garage? Garage is a very sophisticated thing for what was then a car shed. It was truly a car shed. The owner of the house did not have a car, so my father actually went into that car shed and we lived as a family. It was for a long time, 7 years we spent in that place. So that's why, and my father would often repeat, Raman, always remember where we started. We started in a car shed. So, that became an integral part of my thought process. If ever I write a book, well, car shed will be there. So car shed was there. Of course, I did end up in the corner room in the same bank where my father worked as a clerk.
Yes.
He worked as a clerk and he worked as a stenographer. He was stenographer to one or two people who became chairman of the bank. And I entered the bank as chairman. So it is a very unusual story. So that is the car shed corner room part of it. But the word beyond doesn't relate only to SEBI. It is only the professional aspect of it that and beyond is SEBI. To me, actually, the word beyond is reflective of the so many things which happen in life.
Yeah.
The life is not confined to either the beginning, which is the car shed for me, or even the culmination of a professional career in the corner room, even that. the life is much beyond that. In the sense, there's a lot of family stuff, there is a lot of philosophical stuff. There is so much more to life. And what is the happiness you have drawn in your life? How many people you have helped in your life? What amount of gratitude you have shown to people in life for those who have helped you, and so many other things. So the word beyond is signifying so much more. In fact, when I was about to name the book, I was wondering, I put a opinion poll amongst my friends. So I had some different titles, type of titles in mind, like embracing tough choices. I always had a penchant for going for the tough choice. Or life is not about me alone. In Canara Bank, I've used that subtitle. It is not about me alone. It is about so many other people. So like that. But then the uniform verdict was 85% of the people voted for from a car shed to the corner room. And only one person said, Raman, it's fine. It shows the outline of the story, what you are trying to say. But why don't you remove the word and beyond? So why don't you stop with the corner room? I said the most important word in the entire title is and beyond. Beyond is far more important than where you start or what position you occupied, how you lived your life, and much more to life than the positions you hold or the circumstances in which you live. So and beyond is something. In fact, in the very first chapter also, I have used the word beyond. From a train journey, Hyderabad to Hospet, and
Yes.
much beyond. It was a symbolic travel for me from Hyderabad to Hospet to join my first job in State Bank as a clerk, as a matriculate. But was it a travel only from Hyderabad to Hospet? No. It was actually a train. It opened the entire world for me. That train journey, which physically reached Hospet, it actually opened the world for me. So that is beyond. I use the word much beyond. Even life is like that. It's not Hyderabad to Hospet.
Yeah.
It is not car shed to corner room. It is much, much beyond. So this
In
is,
fact,
yeah.
one other commonality that I wanted to share with you, sir. My father also worked as a stenographer in the Indian
Oh.
Railways. He worked. He started in the clerical grade. In fact, started as a class 4 employee in the Indian Railways, and then
my
became a stenographer. The reason I brought that up is because it's a wonderful question, and I think you should answer that question. Which is, I know the question is, would like you to tell little about your illustrious parents who made you such a strong person today? And I think that's a very, very apt question. We all of us actually have to be so grateful for what our parents actually, I think the values they inculcated in us actually is what, especially I think, Raman Sir, please go ahead and share about your parents. I think your story.
My father, of course, we were living in the car shed. My father was a mentally a very extremely strong person. He never felt, although living in the car shed means we were amongst the poorest in that particular locality. But he never felt poor. He always felt rich. And he used to say, "Come to my palace." And he was not a hypocrite. He always meant. And then this is something which drove into us that although we were in a car shed, we were no less than anybody else. So actually that got deeply ingrained in me. I never felt less than anybody in this world. I met great people in Alan Greenspan. I met. There are many photographs in the book with great people. Alan Greenspan, for instance, Ben Bernanke, for instance, Mike Carney, for instance, our own Prime Minister, Finance Minister, successive Finance Ministers, successive RBI governors. I met a lot of people in top positions. And with every one of them, I had an equal conversation. So, and at the same time, when I treat my subordinate, I would get them the IPL tickets.
Correct.
So this is what my father told me. And another lesson which my father told me was never lie. I rarely lie. In the most difficult of situations, I will not lie. And it gives a great strength because people believe Raman. So when I say something, when anybody says, trust but verify. Verify is important.
Yes.
But in my case, when I say something, people always used to believe 100%. So that verification, KYC thing was never there in people who are dealing with me. So it proved to be a great boon for me.
Correct.
About my mom, I tell you, she must have been only fifth standard pass or something. But she was reading Economic Times from page 1 to page last. Economics. And actually, when the RBI started appointing women governors like Udeshi, then thereafter Usha Thorat and Shamla Gopinath. So it was a great thing, and she had an ambition for me that I should become RBI deputy governor. So I didn't have any particular ambition any time in my life. My ambition was only thing, if I am here doing something, I should do it well. That's it. Beyond that, I had no ambition. In every job description I held, that was my ambition. And God gave me everything. Automatically it came. I never asked anyone, please promote me or please give me this, please give me a more glamorous portfolio or a more convenient place. Nothing. I never asked a single person a single thing in my entire life. So this entire thing, whatever came, it came automatically my way. So my mother, she had that ambition. And and then finally, of course, I ended up as SEBI whole-time member, sort of deputy governor. So my father passed away before I became Canara Bank chairman. I have a very strong belief that it was my father's blessings that with which I became Canara Bank chairman. I have written in great detail. I think I would request all of you to please go through the book. And there is a lot more to say. I can go on talking for 2-3 hours, but there is so much of masala to say. But anyway, time constraint. But please read that, read my book. And my mother was a great, great influence. And actually, she passed away before I became SEBI, WTM. So I often say it is because of my father's blessings that I became Canara Bank chairman. And it is my mother's blessings that I became SEBI member. So, so that is what it is. And the more important thing was they were in a poor situation, but they always felt rich. And that is what we all have, all of us, my siblings have acquired. For everyone who's all good values, do no wrong, don't lie, depend on yourself, don't feel bad, don't feel low, etc., etc. So they made us all mentally strong. So which is a great contribution of my parents.
Thank you. I want to end by just again very nice message from Neela, which I feel captures one of the key aspects of the book. So Neela says, I lost my brother when he was 31. My parents lost their son at a very young age. I'm going to give your book to my parents. They're incredibly strong people, and I'm sure your book will give them even more strength. So I think that captures the spirit of your life, and which is captured, which is articulated so beautifully in the book. I think all good things have to come to an end. Even this wonderful conversation has to come to an end. But it's been fun, having this conversation. I hope all of you have, those who have joined, have equally enjoyed listening to Raman Sir. And I think, let me end by saying that you were saying about not saying a lie. That is true. That is basically capturing the part of, the Ram in his name. It was said about Sri Ramji that his word was his, contract in some sense. And therefore, when you don't lie, actually you create the same kind of trust. Thank you so much. Once again, wish you all, or everyone, a very, very good night and a very good day here in the United States. And once again, from all of us, there are lots of elders who also joined. Good wishes to your daughter-in-law and to your granddaughter. Please do show when your granddaughter becomes old enough, show her this video that all of us have actually wished her well, and so I'm sure she's going to be a beacon in her life. Thank you so much.
The book is dedicated to my granddaughter, and one of the motivations which gradually evolved was my granddaughter was only 2.5 years old when my son passed away. So a question came to my mind as to how she will know about her dad.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, I started writing something. A few chapters I have written, I will write the entire thing in a book form, so that my granddaughter, when she grows up, she will read about her father and her father's family herself. So this is one of the motivations, which was not starting motivation. It evolved. One of the motivations which joined the train of motivation. Of course, the entire book was unplanned. I had no plans to write. Please read the preface, all of you. It shows my what is my how was it? What is it? Thought process which which evolved in this long journey of mine, which has been a very exhilarating journey. So
Thank you very much once again.
thank you.
And with those words of very wise words, let's bring this session to a close. Thank you very much for everyone for joining us.
Only one final vote of thanks from my side is to Julia Poblete. She has
Yes,
been so
correct.
wonderful right from the time the proposal went to her, and she has been such strong supporter of this program, and she has ensured that
Yes.
this really has happened very well. So thank you, Julia. God bless you, and Robert Malay, and all your team members in the World Bank, and also in the IMF.
On
And
our
thanks,
behalf as well, thank you so much,
and
Julia.
thanks, Subbu, and thanks, Subbu, for the conversation.
My
Yes.
pleasure, sir. My pleasure.
And all of you,
Yes.
thanks.
Thank you all. Thank you all.